This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so we are till here, till yesterday in, let's say, the day before yesterday's session, we went ahead and we were discussing what is the use or what is the need for something called as a static code analyzer, wherein we said that it's not practically possible for a reviewer like me or like you to go ahead and come and, let's say, review all the lines of the code that are coming from a feature branch. So if I have a feature branch and if I'm trying to, let's say, analyze my code, review my code from a feature branch as such, it's going to be really very difficult for me to do that. So that's the reason I get in something called as a static code analyzer into picture, wherein I am using something called as a Sonar Cloud, and I went ahead and integrated a Sonar Cloud into my branching policy so that whenever a developer raises a feature pull request into the develop branch, this Sonar Cloud should automatically go ahead, trigger the pipeline out, and analyze the entire code. Like it should analyze the entire code quality, and then only your PR should get merged. This is what we were discussing about, or this is what we were really talking about in yesterday or in day before yesterday's session, and we successfully integrated Sonar into it. Now I face another challenge now. What is that challenge? Is this? Let's say I have a .NET pipeline, and I have, like, I've built this pipeline out, and I have all the necessary steps inside this pipeline right now. So this is the build pipeline. So what I'll do, I'll just disable the Sonar tasks for now. So I'm disabling all the three tasks for now. And if you observe this, I am running this on an agent pool called Azure Pipelines with an agent specification called Windows Latest. So I am using a hosted agent to run this task. And as you all know, the hosted agents come with a limited period of time, meaning the hosted agents, let's say, come with around 1800 minutes per a month, meaning I can't run more than 1800 minutes per a month, firstly. Secondly, what if, let's say, you have multiple developers in your team? So let me say disabled Sonar. I'll save this out. So let's imagine right now that you just don't have one developer, but you have thousands of developers that are working. So you have thousands of developers that are actually on a regular basis going ahead and committing all the code into the repository. So not just one, but thousands of them or hundreds of them. Let's imagine that. So each and every one is going ahead and committing their code using their local laptop. They are making sure to pull the feature request, commit the code into the developer branch, and etc. So I have multiple developers who are working parallelly, committing their code into one single repository or into one single branch of my repository, which is a develop branch. So they're using a feature request and they're doing a pull request and etc. I've integrated Sonar. So I've done all those things that I need to do on a security level. Integrated Sonar. I made sure that the Sonar integration is done and etc. And each and every developer right now is targeting the same branch, which is a develop branch in my case. So a lot of developers are targeting. So the question for y'all is, this is where I need your inputs, is that what do you think will happen when each and every developer will go ahead and commit to the same branch? What do you think, or what is it do you think that is going to happen here?
Merge conflicts.
Okay, merge conflict. So they are going ahead and, let's say, uh, sorry, they are going ahead and resolving the merge conflicts. So merge conflicts are not happening. They are getting committed into the branch. They are getting committed into the branch. This is a statement that I'm making, is that they're getting committed into the branch. So what next?
Yeah, actually, we have 1800 minutes per month, right? So we may
Hmm.
run out of the time
Great. We may
as
run out of
as
time. Hmm.
as they are merging the changes to develop branch.
Hmm.
Internally, it will trigger pipeline.
Pipelines. So internally, it's going to trigger build pipelines. So yes, that's rightly said. They are triggering each and every time when they are committing the code to the develop branch. The byproduct of this is going to be a build pipeline trigger, because all the pipelines that we have configured, we have made sure to enable continuous integration. Every pipeline we have integrated, every pipeline basically we have integrated. We have made sure we have something called as a continuous integration out here. So every time the developer is going to commit a code, the pipeline is going to trigger. And since we have like limited amount of time, we may run out of it. A, let's say I'm not running out of it. So the first developer is committing, pipeline is getting triggered. So I'm just showing you how, I'm just imagining that the developer is committing, pipeline is getting triggered. Again, the pipeline is being queued. Second developer is like coming in, triggering a pipeline or basically committing his code, pipeline is getting triggered. So this is the second developer. He committed the code, pipeline got triggered. So this got queued. So this got queued. Third developer is coming in, and he's again basically committing his code. Pipeline is getting triggered, meaning there are multiple pipelines which are getting queued. Now this pipeline will only run after this run is complete. This pipeline is only going to run after this run is complete. In that way, if you basically see the order in which this is getting triggered, the order in which this is basically getting queued up, you will have hundreds of developers over a period of time. You will have hundreds of developers basically working together over a period of time. Imagine that you are the 100 developer. You have to wait for all the 99 builds to complete. All the 99 builds have to complete before your turn comes in. Now imagine each and every build will take about 10 minutes. And if I'm the 101st developer, I have to wait for 100 into 10 minutes every time that I trigger it out. So I have to wait for 1000 minutes each and every time I'll trigger this out, which is not ideal, which is not really what I or which is not really how development should go. All the developmental activities should go in parallel. So there is a lot of queue time which I need to wait out here. This is the issue too. If I go for a hosted agent, so the first, as someone suggested, is that you may run out of the time. And I'm also saying, okay, fine, we'll still not consider that running the timeout, because 1800 minutes, yes, good enough, but yes, we can say, okay, fine, that is one of the issue. Second thing is a queue time. Third thing is that when you're basically using pipelines to basically configure your builds, meaning now you're using pipelines in order to make sure that you're building a code, right? Meaning what you're doing, you're building, what are you doing when you're saying that you're building your code, is that you're converting your code from, let's say, a high level language into binaries. And sometimes, or not sometimes, in most of the times when you're working in a real-time environment, the code that developer writes requires a lot of infrastructure, meaning requires a good amount of infrastructure to go ahead and build it out. And in most of the times, the Azure hosted agents are small capacity VMs, which might not be the best bet for you to go ahead and, let's say, build your code, might not be the best bet to go ahead and release your code and etc. Now that's the reason most of the big organizations, like when you work for, let's say, a big organization, they don't go for Azure hosted pipelines because of all these reasons, and also one of the reasons being that there is a security concern that I'm not comfortable in putting my code on a hosted agent that may be used by someone else. So this agent pool, in most likely, meaning in all likely, will be a self-hosted machine when you're starting to work with big organizations. What do you mean by self-hosted machines again? Is that you get to create your own virtual machines, you get to maintain your own virtual machines, and you need to make sure that you install all the right pieces of the software on the virtual machine and then convert that virtual machine into an agent. What do I mean by that? Is that as of now, I have only Azure hosted agent and something called as a default pool, which is a private agent pool with no agents inside it. It says no agents, meaning what does it mean out here is that if I go into my project settings, I'll say leave. If I go into my project settings out here, and if I just scroll down, there are something called or there is something known as the agent pool. If I go into the agent pool, there are two agent pools that are there by default. One is the hosted pool, which is Azure hosted. The other is the self-hosted agent out here. And if I click on the Azure pool, I have one agent and there were many jobs that are run. Job meaning if you trigger a pipeline, it's called as a job. So there is one agent basically that is lying in my pool, and there are multiple jobs basically that already ran on the pool. And there is something called as a default agent pool, under which there are no agents, under which it says, okay, fine, we do not have any agents here, meaning you do not have any self-hosted agents out here. So what I am going to do is that I am now on my portal.azure.com, and what I'll do right now is that I'll go ahead and create a virtual machine, which I already did. Now this is a time taking process, so I went ahead and created a virtual machine of a size called B2S. So I've taken the minimum size, which is like two virtual core CPUs with 4 GB RAM, and I want to now convert this virtual machine into an agent. Now earlier in let's say in our very first classes, we went ahead and when we were dealing with virtual machines, we converted those virtual machines into something called web servers. We made sure that there are web servers, there are file share servers, and etc. They are converted in such a way. But in today's session, we'll see how you can use the agent as something called as a build agent. What is a build agent? Is something which helps you in building your code. So what I'm going to do right now is that this is the steps that I will follow. Firstly, I will create a VM, which I've already done. I'll create a VM with, let's say, something like a B2S size. And on this created VM, I have the operating system already, but I need softwares like Visual Studio, because this is one of the most important software which helps me in going ahead and building my code. In, let's say, creating or building my code and etc. This is one of the most important software. And I have two types of codes that are there in my project right now or in my organization right now, which is a .NET Core and a .NET Full Framework. So I will need to install .NET Core and Full Framework here. I'll need to install both of them. This is the initial phase to get the agent ready, meaning I'm installing all these softwares, and finally I'll install Git. These are the software installation part. Now this is the agent, this is the virtual machine creation. So this is the VM creation part. This is all the softwares that I require. Now let's say you are working with something like Java. you will need to install Java JDK on top of it. But I'm not working with Java, I'm working with .NET. So that's the reason I'm only using Visual Studio, .NET Core and etc. So depending upon what kind of, let's say, workload that you're working with, what kind of a code that you're trying to build, you'll have to install those required softwares out there. Finally, I will convert this VM into an agent. So if you see guys, Visual Studio 2019 or Visual Studio 2022, right? It will take a lot of time to install. So what I did is that I RDP'd into the machine and it said, okay, fine, I have already installed this out. So I'll say restart the machine. So I'll just restart this machine. So I have installed this already. So I went ahead to Visual Studio Community Edition. I used this particular link. I said Visual Studio install. I used the community edition of the software to go ahead and let's say download and install it out on the agent. So just like you did in your local machine, I did the same installation of the community edition on the virtual machine. So I just clicked on the download. I just clicked on let's say install and I wanted to just install a couple of workloads on top of it. So I installed that. So my Visual Studio installation is done. So this is done. I still need to install .NET Core and full framework on top of it and softwares like Git on top of it. So what I'm going to do is like I'll go into the virtual machine once again. And I will now start installing these softwares now. So I'll say, okay, fine, let's give the username and password. So once I'm inside it and once it loads out, I will now start going to the internet and I'll start installing all the right softwares that are required. So this is going to take about 5 or 6 minutes to get this installation done. And once this installation is done, I will need to go ahead and convert this agent or convert this virtual machine into an agent. That's how we do. I mean, that's the main point on what we do and how we do it and etc. So let's come here and virtual machine is loaded up. So I'll just go into the virtual machine into the internet, and this is something that I'm doing on the virtual machine. And I'll say .NET Core. I'll say .NET Core download SDK. This is what I need to download, which is a software development kit. And it says these are the SDKs that are available, and there are right as of now there is .NET 6 that is right now currently running, which is let's say the latest version of it. So I can install .NET 6. I can say run, and my code, right, the code that I have written was on a framework called .NET 3.1. So the installation was successful. 6 was installed. I also want to go ahead and install .NET 3.1 and .NET 5 because I have multiple developers who are working parallelly, and multiple developers are using different kinds of frameworks on that. So I'm installing different versions of .NET out here. So I'll say, okay, fine, install this out. And this is done. And finally, I'll go ahead and install the .NET 3.1. So I'm installing all these three things to make sure that my machine is always ready. And once this is done, I will also go ahead and install the .NET full framework. So I'll say close and I'll say download .NET framework. So this is where .NET framework is, and the latest version is a .NET framework 4.8. So this is the installation of the .NET framework, which is nothing but the full framework out here. So the .NET Core is done. I've installed all the .NET Core out here. Now it's the time to go ahead and install .NET full framework. So I'll just go ahead and say, okay, fine. I'll just need the runtime. I'll just download this out and I'll say run. And this will now start configuring .NET Full Framework on this virtual machine. And while this is getting configured, I'll just go ahead and install Git as well. So these are the softwares that I that I would need. So I'll say Git download, and I'll download this for Windows, and I'll say the 64-bit setup, and I'll also run Git, and I will install Git here. So there are a lot of things that I'm installing on this machine, and once this installation is done, I will have to go ahead and I'll say yes, and this is okay. So I'm just doing a very simple installation of Git, and this will take some time to get installed. So I'll leave it to be there. I'll leave it to be that way. So Git is done, and this installation is going to take some time. So I'll just say finish, and this installation is going to take some time out here. So I'll just leave it to be there. Now I need to do one more thing. I need to now go ahead and download something called as the agent file on this virtual machine. What do I mean by that? What do I mean by agent file and etc.? Is that in order to create an agent, or in order to create my own self-hosted agent out here, the first thing I'll do is I'll say add a pool, and I'll say I'm adding a new pool. So I'm creating a new pool out here, and I'll say this is a self-hosted pool. I'll say the name of the pool is something like first pool. Since this is the first pool that I'm creating for this class, I'll say this is first pool, and I'll say grant permissions to all pipelines, and I'll say create. I have created a pool but not a machine inside the pool. So if I want to create a machine inside the pool, I have to go to agents. So this is the jobs and this is the agents, and I'll say new agent. And I have to download something known as an agent on the virtual machine, meaning I have to download the software on the virtual machine. So what I'll do is I'll just copy this URL. I'm not going to download it from here into my local. I'll copy this URL. I'll say this is done. This is also finished. And I will go here on the machine, place this URL that I've copied, and I'll just say save this out, and I'll say save. And this is going to take like about a minute or so to save it out. And once this is saved, I'll just open the folder. So I'll just go into the folder where it's got saved. So mostly it should be in the download section. And I have a zip file. Now this is the zip file that I downloaded from this particular link. And how did I get here? Again, I was in the agent pools. I created a new pool, went into the first pool out here and said agents, and I said new pool. And from here, I just copied this out. That's it. And I'm copying the 64-bit of thing. Like I'm copying the 64-bit Windows, because my architecture is a Windows and I am working on a 64-bit operating system. And what I'm going to do right now is I'll just extract this out. I'll say extract, and I will extract it into the C drive. Like I have a C drive here, and I'll just create a folder called agent. And inside this particular folder, I'll just extract everything. And I'll say yes, this is going to extract. Now this will again take like about 2 or 3 minutes of time to go ahead and extract this out. And once this is extracted, I will follow a couple of steps out here. What steps I need to follow again is something that is mentioned out here. Like you have everything that is mentioned out here. It's telling okay, fine. It's telling create the agent, meaning after you download it, create a folder called agent and boot into that folder, meaning just do a cd into that folder, which I've already done. And then it's telling add type, assembly type, something something something, and so on and so forth. It's nothing but it's extracting it into the directory using PowerShell, which I'm already doing manually, which I'm extracting it into the same folder in a manual way. So I don't have to do these two things. But once I have all the files extracted, there will be a file in the folder called cmd.config. So this is the installation procedure right now that I'm coming to. There will be in the file called, there will be a file inside the folder called cmd or config.cmd or just a .config file. That's something that you will see inside the folder out here. This is where the installation will actually begin. So let's wait for a second and let's wait for the extraction to complete, and the extraction is done, and this is what the folder will really look like. It says bin external config and then run. What I'm going to do right now is I'll just click on the address bar and I'll type in cmd to open the command prompt directly on the folder. You can just open the command prompt, do a cd into the folder and etc. But I directly open the command prompt inside the folder called C agent. So this is the path that I'm working on. Now I will say dot forward slash, meaning just go into the folder and get me a file called config.cmd. This is the file that I'm just running from cmd. This is the file that I'm just running from cmd, and I'll say enter. This will now say, this will now say, okay, fine. Can you please give me, or welcome to Azure Pipelines. Can you please give me a server URL? Meaning, what is your Azure DevOps server? What is your Azure DevOps server? Where do you want to install this out? I will say, just take the URL from HTTPS to or till your organization name, not the project name, just the organization name. So I'm just copying. In my case, it is https dev.azure.com/myado playground. This is still here is my name of the organization. I'm going here and I'm saying this is the name. Go ahead. What do you want next? Now it says, okay, fine. You know what? This is a virtual machine right now. And this virtual machine needs to talk to your Azure DevOps pipelines, needs to make sure that it communicates with your Azure DevOps pipelines. Then how should this virtual machine authenticate itself into Azure DevOps? Every time it cannot be logging in, right? Like the way you do, the virtual machine cannot log in. So this is the issue that I have right now, is that while creating the agent, I have created a virtual machine, and this virtual machine has altogether a different directory, meaning this is a different Azure DevOps. This is a different portal account as such. It's a classes Azure DevOps at gmail.com, which is altogether a different portal. And Azure is running out, or Azure DevOps is running out of this particular ID at the rate outlook.com. It's running off this particular ID. So there are two different IDs out here, meaning this is a different service altogether. This is running on Azure. It can be running on AWS anywhere, on premise anywhere, not a problem. But this is an infrastructure as a service, and you have Azure DevOps. You have pipelines in Azure DevOps. I'll just say this is ADO, Azure DevOps. And this agent that you have here, or this agent that you're creating out here, needs to talk with this Azure DevOps regularly. In order to talk with it, it needs to authenticate itself. If I need to authenticate itself, this is what it's asking me, is that enter the authentication type, press enter for PAT, personal access token. This is what it's asking you right now, is that can you please give me some kind of an authentication out here? So firstly, I'll say enter. It's now telling enter personal access token. Where do I get the personal access token from? Now I am inside the Azure DevOps. I am, let's say, the project administrator out here. And in here, I have a gear icon, right? Like just beside my account, I have a settings, a gear icon and etc. So what I'm going to do is I'll just go into the particular gear icon, and in here I have something called as personal access token. It says personal access tokens. I'll click on this, and now I will say create a new token. I will say this is the ADO agent token Azure. I'm just giving a token like this, and I'll give an expiration of about 30 days for this token. I'll say full access and I'll say create. I have now got a secret. I'll copy this out, paste it into a notepad. So this is the PAT that I've copied, pasting into my notepad. This is how it looks like. I'll just copy entire all these things out. I'll just go into the Azure DevOps pipelines and I'll paste it here. So I'm pasting the PAT token out here and I'll say enter. Now it's trying to connect to the server and it said, okay, fine, you are authenticated. The PAT is right. Can you please enter the agent pool inside which you want to create this agent in? So I have already created an agent pool called first pool, right? I want to provision this agent inside that particular pool out here. So I'll go into the pool and I will select the pools called first pool. This is the pool name is what I want to select. And as of now, there are no agents here. So I'll say this is the pool that I want. And I'll say this is 5RST first pool. And it's telling what is the name of the agent that you want to basically, enter here. What is the name of the machine of the agent basically? So I'll say it is demo VM1, which is the name of the VM, hyphen the first agent of the VM. So I'm saying demo VM1 hyphen 1 and I'll say enter. Now it's telling, okay, fine, I'm scanning for the tool capabilities, meaning I'm understanding what are all the softwares that are there that are installed on this machine. And I will try to provision the agent for you. It's telling connecting to the server and etc. Now it's telling agent is successful. Enter work folder, meaning what is the folder in which you want to start working on this agent. By default, it is underscore work. I'll say it is work. And now it says, do you want to run agent as a service? Press enter for no. So there are two things, agent either as a service or agent being interactive. There are two things in which you can run your agent in. But for now, I'll say I want to enter this agent or I want to run this agent as a service. Why? Yes, I need to run this agent as a service. And it's saying what is the account that you want to use. I'll just say enter here. And now it says, okay, fine. It's now asking me that it's now telling me that, you know what, the agent is successfully configured. You're great. You're good to go. Enter whether to prevent service running immediately after configuration is finished. I'll say no, I don't want to prevent it. I want you to basically go ahead and run this agent. And once you do that, once you configure this out, you will have an agent called demo VM01-1 into the pool, which is now online. This is what I did to go ahead and configure something called as a self-hosted agent out here. So I went ahead, I installed all the softwares, and I then configured something called as a self-hosted agent. And this agent is running from this virtual machine right now, and it has something called as a work folder. This is empty for now. So what I'm going to do right now is go into my pipelines. So I'll just replicate this. I'll go into my pipelines and I will now start using this agent in my pipeline. So I have a .NET Core. I'm saying edit, and in here I will say go to the pipeline here, change the agent to the first pool, and I'll say save and queue. I'll say private agent run. So I am running this agent right now, or I'm running my pipeline right now out of a machine, or I'm running this agent right now from a machine which is called a self-hosted agent. This is what I'm using, which is a demo VM-1. This will take some time initially because this is the first run of the agent, so it has to download a lot of things out here. And after that, you have the entire procedure same. So first thing, it's doing a checkout, meaning it is downloading all the repository, all the source files of the repository into the agent. It's taking all the source files, it's downloading everything into the agent machine. It's then doing, let's say, a .NET build, a .NET restore, and etc. And it is helping me produce something known as the artifact. So it's helping me, or it's basically going ahead and helping me produce something called as the artifact out here. So once the artifact is published, let's go into the agent machine and look and see how it looks like. So it's done. Now I'm going to my agent machine. Just do a refresh here. And this is the folder where the agent is configured. If I go into work, I have something called as one. If I go here, there are these three folders that I'm able to see: A, B, S. S folder is the build.sources folder or build.sources directory. The S folder out here is the $build.sources directory, which is the folder in which all your code is downloaded into. It said, okay, fine, I'm checking the repository out from @develop branch to, let's say, this particular folder called S. So if I go into S, I'm able to see these three folders or the two folders in the readme.md file, which is the same that is there on my Azure DevOps repository. So I go into my repository right now. These are the three things that I'm able to see. And these three things got successfully downloaded into the S folder of my agent. Finally, the agent is running and producing and producing the artifact. It is producing the artifact into a folder called build.artifact staging directory, which is nothing but the A folder here. If I go into the A folder, this is the compiled version of the application. So everything is now saved on the agent, and now we are using something called as a self-hosted agent on our own. Now, guys, believe me, this is one of the most used features in Azure DevOps. In any organization that you work, this feature will be there. You will work with self-hosted agents. You are going to work with self-hosted agents. So any questions till here, guys? Anyone, anything till here? Anyone, any questions till here? Any questions, guys? Anyone, any questions till here on what did we do so far? How did we configure it and etc.? Any questions? Anyone, anything? Okay, so I will ask a question to you all now. Is that I have configured one virtual machine called demo VM1, and I have created an agent that is running from that particular machine. So if you look at the project settings and if I go into the agent pools, I have a first pool and I have an agent running out of this pool. I have an agent which is running out of this pool. If I now want to go ahead and create another agent, do I need or should I need to create another virtual machine, or can I reuse the virtual machine? I need some inputs from you all in here. So should I create another virtual machine, or should I be, or can I reuse this particular virtual machine to go ahead and create another agent?
We can reuse.
We can use.
We can reuse. We should be able to reuse. Yes. So meaning when I configure this agent, I configured this agent to run as a service onto the machine. What do I mean by that is this. So if I look at the task manager, if I look at the task manager and I'll say services, and I'll say open services, all these are the services that are running in the background of your machine. And this agent got configured as a service onto your machine. So let's see where that is. So if you look at this particular service out here, it's called Azure Pipeline Agent, and it's telling my ADO agent, first pool, and etc. This is the this is the agent which is running on your virtual machine as a service. Can I stop this? Definitely yes, I can stop the service also. And if I stop it, your agent here is going to go offline, meaning this is the background task which is helping you run the agent. Like this, you can configure multiple services. So if I want to do a refresh and etc., the agent is again going to come online. So it will take some time for this to come online. So right now it is offline. It's trying to basically run this agent in the background and etc. Now, if you want to configure this agent again, if you want to configure multiple agents again, you just have to do the same thing that I did till now. You firstly have to make sure to extract this to extract this folder. So I'll again do an extraction. I'll say browse, and I can basically go ahead into the agent folder and extract it. Or I can create a new folder called agent01. I'll say a new folder called agent02. I can extract all this folder out here, extract all those files out here, and I will do the same procedure again. But this time around, the name of the agent is going to be demo vm01-2. I'll do the same procedure again, and I can create multiple. Sorry, I can create running out of the same pool out here. And how many agents that you can basically create? There is no number. There is no proper number. You can create as many as agents you want, provided the size of the virtual machine supports it. Provided the size of the virtual machine actually supports this out. So any questions till here, guys? Anyone, anything till here? Anyone, any questions till here? Okay, any doubts that you all have, guys, from previous classes? Any challenges that you're facing?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Uh, you're the one who gave me the Sonar Cloud, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah, correct. Sonar Cloud is to start.
so did you install Sonar Cloud in, I mean, when you added Sonar Cloud, right? Before you added it, did you install it like in here on the pipeline?
Mhm.
Were you able to add these tasks, like these tasks?
Okay.
Because what happens is that until and unless you don't install Sonar, right, you won't be able to go ahead and configure it out. So what I would suggest is that first add these tasks. Okay, so if you select Sonar, so this is what you can do. If you select Sonar, if you select add tasks, and if you select Sonar,
Mhm.
you will be able to see something called in the marketplace, you'll be able to see something called Sonar Cloud, and just below that you will have something called get it free. Just click on get it free and install it out. It will take some time to get installed, and refresh your screen couple of times, and you'll be able to see these three tasks for Sonar. You'll be able to see these three tasks for Sonar getting reflected on your screen. Add these three in your pipeline in the order that we were talking about the other day. And once you add it, right, you can directly go into prepare analysis, and in here for you, it's going to tell what is the endpoint and etc. It's going to tell what is the endpoint. In here, you can directly add the endpoint. You can say add the endpoint, and this is the same screen again will come here. So you can directly add the endpoint here. So you're not able to see Sonar because you have not installed Sonar there. So firstly install Sonar onto your organization from the marketplace, and then start creating the service endpoint out here. So even this will work. Is that okay? Like,
Yes, okay.
did you get that?
Yeah, yes, yes, sir. I
Okay,
will.
just give me a message if you are not able to get that. Okay,
Yeah, sure.
any more questions, guys? Any more, anything, any more questions here? Okay, so with this we close with the build pipelines. We see what is build pipelines and etc. And from tomorrow's session, we will be going into the release pipelines, and we will be looking at different concepts like what is a release pipeline in Azure DevOps, and what are things like infrastructure as a code, and how can you use ARM templates in a release pipeline to create infrastructure automatically, and so on and so forth. So these are a couple of things that we are going to see starting from tomorrow, and I will need somewhere around 3 or 4 classes for to complete the release pipeline. So I'm looking at, let's say, so tomorrow and let's say 31st, 1st, and 2nd. These are 3 days basically that I need to basically I need for covering the release pipelines out there. And after that, we are going to do YAML for 2 classes, and then we are going to move into the open source like Terraform and etc. So this is going to be the plan, guys. But after, let's say, the next week, which is like about Thursday or something, Thursday or Friday for the next week, you all should be basically good to go ahead and start your job. Like, this is the main core of your syllabus. So I'll complete I'll complete firstly the core of your syllabus, and then we'll move into something like Terraform, Docker, and Kubernetes. These are the things that we will be covering. Okay. Any questions there, guys? Okay, guys, so that's it from mine today then. We'll meet tomorrow and we'll discuss more on this. Thank you, guys.